Lucille Ball told everyone about 9 actresses who were really mean people. For more than 20 years, Lucille Ball was the most famous redhead on TV. Her funny laugh and silly faces made millions of people happy, and she became the most powerful woman in Hollywood ever. But behind that sweet and fun personality was a tough businesswoman who could tell if someone was fake or real. As the first woman to run a big movie studio, Lucille didn't just make people laugh. She could make or destroy someone's career with just one word. Lucy had no patience for fake people or mean people, said someone who used to work with Ball for over 10 years. When she wasn't on camera, she kept a secret list in her head of actresses she thought were really awful human beings, women whose pretty public faces hid what Lucy called hearts made of ice. In her last years, Ball started telling the truth about the famous people she had secretly hated during her whole career. The stories she told close friends show a scary picture of beloved stars who were monsters behind their carefully fake public images. The most shocking thing was what Ball said about one famous actress who seemed nice and classy in interviews, but who Lucy saw being so mean to a young costume helper that the girl quit working in movies forever. And the beloved TV star who Ball said was more dangerous than any man in Hollywood because her sweet on-screen personality was perfect cover for what Lucy called a whole life of planned destruction. These weren't just hard-to-work-with people or demanding stars. According to Ball, these were really dark people hiding behind fame and talent, people who lie and destroy others while the movie industry protected them for many years. But first we need to understand why the first name on Ball's list earned her strongest hate, and the private fight that proved every bad thing Lucy ever thought about Hollywood's Ice Queen. Why didn't you call me? You might have, Philadelphia isn't the end of the world. Joan Crawford, the Hollywood queen with ice in her heart. When Joan Crawford came on Here's Lucy in 1971, viewers saw the gracious Hollywood legend they'd loved for many years. With her perfect posture, perfect appearance, and practiced charm, Crawford represented old Hollywood glamour. But according to many Desilu staff members, Crawford's behavior when cameras weren't rolling showed a very different person. She was one of the coldest people I've ever met, Ball told her longtime hairdresser years later. Like talking to a beautiful statue with nothing inside. All she had was glamour. Underneath was nothing but ice. Crawford's visit started causing problems before she even got to the studio. Her demands included special lighting rules so detailed that the show's technical director still had the 5-page list in his files many years later. Everything had to be just right, remembered a former producer. The angle of her chair, the height of where she stood on set, even the temperature of the studio, exactly 68 degrees. Not 67. Not 69. When Crawford finally arrived 3 hours before filming, she brought her own makeup team, even though the show had award-winning makeup artists working there. But what really showed Crawford's true personality was how differently she treated people based on how important they were. She practically bowed to Lucy, said a stage worker who was there that day. But when a young wardrobe helper accidentally brought in a dress with a tiny wrinkle you could barely see, Crawford exploded. According to many witnesses, Crawford started yelling so mean that staff members in the hallway stopped and stared in shock. She called the helper, a 22-year-old woman just starting in the business, a useless little nothing, and said she should find work cleaning toilets where low standards clearly wouldn't matter. The young woman ran away crying and Crawford demanded she be fired. Ball's producer said no, creating tension that lasted throughout the filming. But the most disturbing thing about Crawford's visit wasn't just how she treated workers. It was the calculating way she changed the moment cameras turned on. She was like a robot pretending to be a woman, one producer remembered. She had practiced every answer, every laugh, every spontaneous moment. Nothing was real. During breaks, Crawford would immediately stop smiling and sit with a stone face, not talking to anyone, then instantly come alive when the red light came back on. Ball, known for her warm relationship with crew members, was clearly uncomfortable with Crawford's behavior. After the show, she told her co-star Gail Gordon, "I've performed with department store mannequins that had more real emotion." Years later, when Christina Crawford's book Mommy Dearest revealed Joan's alleged abuse of her adopted children, Ball wasn't surprised. According to close friends, she simply nodded and said, "I saw who she really was in those few hours. I believe every word." But if Crawford's cold calculation made Ball uncomfortable, her next enemy represented something she found even more disturbing. Talent wasted through self-destruction that hurt everyone around her. Though Judy Garland, the brilliant star who left destruction everywhere she went, this might seem like a shocking choice. After all, Judy Garland is remembered as one of Hollywood's most beloved talents, a hurt soul crushed by the studio system's cruelty. Lucille Ball herself spoke publicly about Garland's incredible gifts as a performer. But in private, according to those closest to her, Ball had a more complicated view of Garland, one that praised her genius while refusing to excuse the chaos her behavior created for everyone around her. "Lucy loved Judy's talent," said a longtime friend of Ball's, but she was brutally honest about how Judy's unreliability and drug problems hurt dozens of innocent people. Lucy used to say, "Talent doesn't give you the right to destroy other people's careers." Ball and Garland had known each other since their early days at MGM, meeting repeatedly throughout their careers. While Ball was known for her iron-strong professionalism and perfect reliability, Garland became famous for the opposite, showing up hours late, missing appearances completely, or arriving too messed up on drugs to perform. What really bothered Ball wasn't Garland's personal problems, but how those problems affected the hardworking people around her. The crew members who waited hours for her to show up, the producers who faced money problems when she didn't come, and the less famous co-stars whose careers suffered from canceled productions. Lucy once told me about visiting a set where Judy was supposed to be working, remembered a former television director who worked with Ball in the 1970s. The entire crew had been there since 5:01 a.m. Judy finally showed up at 2 p.m., performed brilliantly for 30 minutes, then said she was too tired to continue. An entire day's work lost. And Lucy said the worst part was watching the producer fire 3 crew members the next day, because the production was now over budget. What made this especially personal for Ball was her own history. She had clawed her way up from cheap movies and radio, surviving career problems through pure determination and reliability. The idea that someone would waste greater talent through self-sabotage struck her as almost criminal. Judy was always late, always a mess, and someone always got fired for it, Ball said during a private dinner in the late 1970s. And everyone just kept making excuses because when she did show up, she was magic, but the body count around her was real. This view might seem harsh, but it showed Ball's core belief about Hollywood, that even the greatest stars have responsibilities to the hundreds of less famous people who make their success possible. When Garland died in 1969, Ball publicly expressed sadness at the loss of a great talent. Privately, according to friends, she viewed Garland's story as a tragic example of how addiction doesn't just destroy the addict. It creates waves of damage that affect countless others. Lucy wasn't without compassion, explained her friend. She understood Judy had been damaged by the studio system, but Lucy also refused to pretend that made it okay for Judy to damage others in turn. While Garland represented talent wasted through self-destruction, Ball's next enemy demonstrated something she found equally troubling: calculated fake behavior packaged as European sophistication. "I didn't know what lesbian is. I was just a young wife of Joseph. Oh God." Zsa Zsa Gabor phony elegance on 2 legs. With her glamorous appearance, distinctive accent, and flirty personality, Zsa Zsa Gabor was a talk show favorite who appeared on countless programs during the 1960s and 70s. Viewers saw a charming, over-the-top personality who played up her Hungarian background and many marriages for laughs. Ball saw something very different, what she privately called phony elegance on 2 legs. Lucy couldn't stand fake people, and she thought Zsa Zsa was the fakest of them all, said a former writer who worked closely with Ball. She used to say that accent gets thicker or thinner depending on what she wants. Nothing about her is real. Not her hair, not her jewelry, not even her name. Ball's dislike came from multiple meetings with Gabor throughout their careers, including a particularly revealing incident at a charity event in the late 1960s. According to several witnesses, Gabor arrived covered in diamonds and furs, playing up her darling persona for photographers. The moment the cameras disappeared, however, Gabor allegedly changed completely, snapping at volunteers, demanding special treatment, and openly complaining about having to attend this boring event. Despite being paid for her appearance, Lucy watched the whole thing, remembered an attendee who later worked with Ball. She saw Zsa charming the photographers, then turning around and treating the volunteers like servants. Afterward, Lucy said, "That woman isn't just playing a role, she's living a lie and doesn't even know the difference anymore." What particularly irritated Ball about Gabor was how her behavior affected other women in the industry. At a time when female performers struggled to be taken seriously as professionals, Ball believed Gabor's whole act, marrying for money, showing off wealth, and playing up European exotic appeal, made the worst stereotypes about women using sexuality rather than talent seem true. "Lucy built her career on hard work and comedic genius," explained the former writer. She hated that Gabor built hers on batting her eyelashes and marrying rich men. Ball's opinion seemed proven right in 1989, years after her death. When Gabor was arrested for slapping a Beverly Hills police officer, showing that the temperamental diva personality wasn't just an act, but showed real entitlement. While Gabor's calculated fake behavior annoyed Ball, her next difficult contemporary represented something she found even more disturbing: real talent corrupted by uncontrolled rage. "Me. I disgust you." "You bet." Davis, the talent that couldn't control its cruelty. Bette Davis was without question one of the greatest actresses of Hollywood's golden age. With a career spanning many years and performances that defined American cinema, her intensity on screen was legendary, but according to those who knew Lucille Ball, that intensity was nothing compared to Davis's off-screen behavior. "Lucy admired Bette's talent enormously," said a longtime friend of Ball's. "But she used to say Bette Davis could melt film with her stare, and the only thing bigger than her talent was her cruelty." The two Hollywood legends crossed paths many times throughout their careers, with their most revealing encounter reportedly happening at an industry dinner in the mid-1960s. According to several attendees, Davis spent the evening putting down waitstaff, interrupting other speakers, and making mean remarks about absent colleagues. Ball, seated at a nearby table, reportedly declined an invitation to join Davis's group, telling her host, "I'd rather keep my skin intact tonight." What made Davis particularly difficult in Ball's eyes wasn't just her famously sharp tongue, but the way she used it as a weapon against people who couldn't fight back. Davis became notorious for yelling at makeup artists, costume designers, and junior actors, making them cry and sometimes demanding their firing if they failed to meet her exact standards. Lucy once overheard Bette tearing into a young actress on a neighboring soundstage, remembered a former Desilu employee. The poor girl had said a single word wrong in a scene. Bette spent 5 minutes ripping her to pieces in front of the entire crew, asking if she'd learned to read in a reformatory. Lucy was so disgusted she complained to the director about allowing that kind of behavior. What particularly bothered Ball about Davis's behavior was that it came from someone with genuine, extraordinary talent. Unlike some difficult stars who made up for limited ability with big personalities, Davis had real gifts that in Ball's view made her behavior even less excusable. "Lucy felt that the truly great should lift others up, not tear them down," explained her friend. She used to say, "When you reach the top, you have a responsibility to be better, not worse." Despite her private distaste for Davis's behavior, Ball maintained professional respect for her contributions to film. When Davis appeared on a television special celebrating women in entertainment, Ball participated but reportedly requested that they not be scheduled for any one-on-one interactions. "It wasn't that Lucy was afraid of Bette," clarified the friend. "She just didn't see any point in spending time with someone who took joy in making others miserable, no matter how talented they might be." While Davis represented raw talent corrupted by cruelty, Ball's next difficult contemporary embodied something she found equally troubling: emotional detachment that extended even to family. "Oh, excuse me. My hands shake though when I'm around you." Barbara Stanwyck, the ice queen who abandoned her son. Barbara Stanwyck stands as one of Hollywood's most respected actresses, a four-time Oscar nominee known for her versatility and professionalism. Her tough, no-nonsense screen personality made her a perfect fit for everything from film noir to westerns. According to those close to Lucille Ball, however, Stanwyck's emotional detachment wasn't just a screen personality. It was her defining characteristic in real life, one that Ball found deeply disturbing. Lucy once said Stanwyck scared her, said a former Desilu executive. She said, "Barbara's like a statue you'd never dare touch. Perfect, polished, and completely cold." The two actresses worked together briefly in the early days of Desilu Productions, and Ball reportedly came away from the experience disturbed by Stanwyck's ability to turn emotions on and off like a faucet. According to several accounts, Stanwyck could be crying in a dramatic scene, then immediately switched to discussing lunch options the moment the director called cut, without a trace of the previous emotion. "Lucy was an actress who drew from real feelings," explained the executive. "She found Barbara's approach almost inhuman, like watching someone who was playing at being a person, rather than actually being one." What truly made Ball's negative opinion final, however, was Stanwyck's relationship, or lack thereof, with her adopted son, Dion. According to Hollywood insiders, Stanwyck and her then-husband, actor Frank Fay, adopted Dion in 1932. After their divorce, Stanwyck raised him as a single mother, but their relationship reportedly got worse as he grew older. By most accounts, Stanwyck eventually cut off contact with her son entirely, a decision that Ball, as a devoted mother herself, found impossible to understand. "Lucy couldn't understand how anyone could turn their back on their child," said a longtime friend. "She used to say, 'Whatever problems you have with your kids, they're still your kids. Walking away isn't an option.'" This view showed Ball's own life. Despite her divorce from Desi Arnaz, both remained actively involved in their children's lives and maintained a working relationship for their sake. The idea that Stanwyck could completely cut ties with her son struck Ball as evidence of a basic emotional problem. She plays strong women, but off-screen she left people in tears, including her own family. Ball reportedly told a friend after running into Stanwyck at an industry event in the 1970s. While Stanwyck's emotional detachment troubled Ball, her next difficult contemporary represented something she found even more disturbing: chaotic behavior that crossed from eccentric into dangerous. "I wouldn't even lower myself to try to get even with a wacky character like you." Tallulah Bankhead. Unmanageable and dangerous. Tallulah Bankhead was one of the most colorful personalities of the 20th century entertainment. A flamboyant actress known for her deep voice, sexual openness, and outrageous behavior both on and off stage. Her wit and wild personality made her a favorite of audiences who appreciated her boundary-pushing style. Behind the scenes, according to those who worked with her, Bankhead's wild behavior wasn't just entertaining. It was unpredictable, disruptive, and sometimes dangerous. Lucille Ball discovered this firsthand when Bankhead appeared as a guest star on the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour in 1957. According to many crew members, what should have been a simple guest appearance turned into a production nightmare. Tallulah was chaotic, vulgar, and often drunk on set, said a former Desilu production assistant who witnessed the filming. Lucy gave her a shot because she was a big name, but regretted every second of it. She wasn't just wild, she was toxic. The problems reportedly began at rehearsal, where Bankhead arrived clearly drunk, unable to remember her lines, and likely to go off script with inappropriate improvisation that couldn't possibly be used in a 1950s family television program. She would suddenly start cursing or making sexual jokes in the middle of scenes, remembered the production assistant. This was the 1950s. You couldn't say those things on television. The censors would have had heart attacks. More concerning than her language was Bankhead's unpredictable physical behavior. According to multiple accounts, she would sometimes wander away mid-scene, disappear to her dressing room for unexplained breaks, or make physical contact with other actors that wasn't in the script, throwing off their performances. Desilu producers reportedly described her as unmanageable and dangerous after she nearly knocked over an expensive camera during a particularly chaotic moment on set. After that episode wrapped, Lucy told Desi, "Never again," claimed the production assistant. She said working with Tallulah was like trying to choreograph a hurricane. Impossible and likely to end in disaster. What particularly frustrated Ball about Bankhead's behavior was how it affected everyone else involved in the production. While Bankhead was having what she considered fun, crew members were working longer hours to deal with her unpredictability. Other actors were struggling to maintain their performances in the face of her disruptions, and the entire production was at risk of going over budget. Lucy had no patience for people who thought their own entertainment was more important than everyone else's livelihood, explained a former colleague. She built Desilu on professionalism and respect for the production process. Tallulah represented everything she despised: talent wasted through selfishness. While Bankhead's chaotic unprofessionalism frustrated Ball, her next difficult contemporary embodied something she found equally troubling: a willingness to lash out violently when frustrated. That miserable little brat, she is becoming impossible. Simply impossible. The idea. Shelley Winters. A Storm in a Dress. Shelley Winters changed from a blonde bombshell in the 1940s to a respected character actress who won 2 Academy Awards. Her dramatic talents were undeniable, earning her critical praise and a place in Hollywood history. Off-camera, according to many accounts, Winters became known for something else entirely: explosive outbursts, public fights, and an inability to control her temper that made her one of the most feared women in Hollywood. Lucy saw Shelley as a storm in a dress, said a writer who worked with Ball in the 1970s. She used to say, "You never knew what version you were going to get. Calm waters or a Category 5 hurricane." Ball's opinion was based on multiple encounters with Winters throughout their careers, including a particularly revealing incident at a Hollywood fundraiser in the late 1960s. According to several witnesses, Winters became angry when she felt she wasn't being given proper recognition during the event. What followed was what one attendee described as a public meltdown of epic proportions. Winters allegedly screaming at organizers, throwing a drink, and making such a scene that several guests left early. Ball, seated at a nearby table, reportedly turned to her companion and said simply, "And that's why I declined when they asked if I wanted to sit with Shelley." Even more concerning than her public behavior were reports of Winters' treatment of industry professionals behind the scenes. According to multiple sources, she once threw a drink on a Desilu executive who suggested a minor script change during a project discussion. She didn't just disagree, she erupted, remembered a former producer who witnessed the incident. One minute they were having a normal conversation about a scene. The next minute, the poor man was wearing her cocktail. Lucy was furious, not just about the disrespect, but about the executive being embarrassed in front of his team. What frustrated Ball about Winters' behavior was that it often seemed planned rather than truly uncontrollable. Several observers noted that Winters' outbursts typically happened when she wasn't getting her way, or when enough attention wasn't being paid to her, suggesting her emotional responses were actually tactical. Lucy had a theory about Shelley, explained the writer. She believed Shelley had learned early on that if she created enough chaos, people would eventually give her what she wanted, just to make the drama stop. Lucy hated manipulation of any kind, but that kind was particularly obvious and offensive to her. Despite her private distaste for Winters' behavior, Ball maintained a professional relationship with her, even appearing at some of the same events. According to friends, Ball's approach was simple: "I keep a safe distance and always make sure there's someone between us." While Winters' emotional explosions troubled Ball, her next enemy represented something she found even more disturbing: deliberate cruelty disguised as sultry sophistication. "But I feel afraid in shoes, and I feel safe with my feet in the dirt." Ava Gardner. Hollywood saw her as sultry. Lucy saw her as savage. Ava Gardner was one of the most beautiful women to ever grace the silver screen. A stunning actress whose exotic looks and sensual presence made her a global sex symbol during Hollywood's golden age. Her turbulent relationships with men like Frank Sinatra and Howard Hughes only added to her mystique. Behind the glamorous facade, according to those who knew Lucille Ball, lurked a woman capable of breathtaking cruelty, particularly toward people she thought were beneath her notice. Lucy thought Ava was one of the meanest people in Hollywood, said a longtime friend of Ball's. She once said, Ava doesn't just burn bridges. She dances on the ashes and laughs while they're still burning. Ball's opinion was based on many encounters throughout their careers at MGM and beyond. According to several accounts, Gardner became notorious for her treatment of assistants, makeup artists, and other support staff, yelling at them publicly, making impossible demands, and taking pleasure in their discomfort. Lucy witnessed Ava making a young wardrobe assistant cry because her dress had been steamed too much, remembered a former studio employee. The poor girl was apologizing and trying to fix it when Ava looked at her and said, "Don't bother. You can't fix being stupid with more stupidity." Lucy was standing nearby and was so disgusted she later called the girl to her dressing room and told her not to take it personally. What particularly made Ball angry was a reported incident in the mid-1960s when Gardner allegedly called her a washed-up clown during an industry event. According to several witnesses, Gardner made the comment loudly enough to be overheard, seemingly not caring or perhaps hoping that word would get back to Ball. Lucy wasn't bothered by the insult itself, explained her friend. She was secure in her success. What disgusted her was the casual cruelty. The idea that Ava would try to hurt someone simply because she could. This incident apparently confirmed Ball's existing opinion that Gardner's beautiful outside hid an ugly spirit. According to those close to Ball, she told a friend, "Ava doesn't just burn bridges. She dances on the ashes." What Ball found particularly troubling about Gardner was how the industry continued to enable her behavior because of her extraordinary beauty, a situation Ball found both predictable and depressing. Lucy used to say that if Ava had been born plain, she would have had to develop a personality, the friend remembered. Instead, her looks meant she never had to be kind, considerate, or even interesting. And after decades of that privilege, she'd lost the ability to be any of those things. While Gardner's deliberate cruelty disturbed Ball, her final and perhaps most surprising enemy was someone much closer to home, her own co-star. "We can identify ourselves." "We can?" "Sure. Well, Vivian Vance. The friendship that survived the wounds." This might be the most shocking name on Lucille Ball's list. After all, Ball and Vivian Vance eventually developed a close friendship that lasted until Vance's death in 1979. Their characters, Lucy Ricardo and Ethel Mertz, created one of television's most beloved female friendships. But according to many sources close to both women, the early years of their relationship were far from friendly, marked by jealousy, insecurity, and genuine dislike that sometimes erupted into heated fights. The friendship between Lucy and Vivian was real, but so were the wounds, said a former writer who worked on I Love Lucy during its early seasons. They fought like sisters, which means they fought dirty and knew exactly where to aim. The problems began almost immediately after Vance was cast as Ethel. According to multiple accounts, Ball initially worried that Vance, at 42 only 2 years older than Ball, but playing a much older character, was too attractive for the role. This concern reportedly led to the infamous contract rule requiring Vance to stay overweight throughout the series, a condition that understandably created resentment from the very beginning of their professional relationship. Vivian felt humiliated, explained a friend who knew both actresses. Here she was getting the biggest break of her career, and the star was essentially saying, "You need to be less attractive or you're fired." It was a terrible way to start a working relationship. The tension wasn't one-sided. According to several sources, Vance could be equally cutting toward Ball, particularly in the early years of the show. She reportedly called Ball that tough old broad, and complained about her controlling nature on set. One particularly heated argument reportedly happened when Vance felt Ball was deliberately drawing focus during one of her few spotlight moments in an episode. Vivian stormed into Lucy's dressing room after rehearsal and accused her of scene stealing, remembered a crew member who witnessed the aftermath. She called Lucy controlling, jealous, and old. Lucy fired back that Vivian should be grateful she had a job at all. It got ugly fast. What makes this relationship different from the others on Ball's list is that it eventually grew into genuine friendship. As both women matured and the show continued its successful run, Mutual respect gradually replaced the initial hate. They realized they were stronger together than apart, explained the friend. Lucy came to appreciate Vivian's talent and loyalty, and Vivian recognized that Lucy's perfectionism was about making the best show possible, not about control for its own sake. By the 1970s, the two had developed a close bond that lasted until Vance's death from bone cancer in 1979. Ball was devastated by the loss, showing how completely their relationship had changed from its difficult beginnings. Lucy never forgot how Vivian called her controlling, jealous, and old, said a longtime friend who knew both women. But she also never forgot how Vivian stood by her during her divorce from Desi when many others in Hollywood turned away. The friendship was real, but so were the wounds they gave each other along the way. What Lucille Ball's enemies list reveals about Hollywood's true nature. Lucille Ball's private feelings about these 9 difficult women: Joan Crawford, Judy Garland, Zsa Gabor, Bette Davis, Barbara Stanwyck, Tallulah Bankhead, Shelley Winters, Ava Gardner, and Vivian Vance offer a rare unfiltered glimpse into Hollywood's reality, behind the carefully maintained facade of glamour and sisterhood. Lucy saw everything, explained a longtime Desilu producer. As the first woman to run a major studio, every female star had to go through her at some point. She knew who was genuine and who was faking it. What makes Ball's opinions particularly valuable is that she had no reason to exaggerate or invent negative stories. Unlike tabloid journalists or angry employees with axes to grind, Ball was at the absolute top of the entertainment industry. She had nothing to gain by criticizing these celebrities, and everything to lose if her honesty damaged potential business relationships. Lucy wasn't looking to make enemies, noted her former producer. Just the opposite. She wanted every production to go smoothly. When she disliked someone, it was because they had made it impossible not to. Ball's unique position, part performer, part studio executive, gave her an unmatched perspective on celebrity culture. For many years, she viewed stars both as a peer and as a boss, creating a dual perspective that made her private judgments all the more significant. Perhaps most revealing is how Ball distinguished between women who were merely difficult and those she considered truly problematic. She tolerated eccentricity, nervousness, even moderate ego. Understanding these came with the territory of fame. What she couldn't stand was cruelty, especially toward those with less power. Lucy had a simple test, remembered her longtime friend. How did they treat the pages, the assistants, the makeup artists that told her everything she needed to know about someone's character? In the years since Ball's death in 1989, many of her private opinions have been proven right by broader revelations about these celebrities. Christina Crawford's allegations about her mother, Joan, reports about Judy Garland's unreliability, and stories of Ava Gardner's treatment of staff have all been confirmed by multiple sources. This suggests Ball wasn't just being judgmental. She was recognizing genuine character flaws that Hollywood's publicity machine worked overtime to hide from the public. The most sobering aspect of Ball's list is how effectively the studio system protected these celebrities, despite their behavior being known to industry insiders. Long before social media and cancel culture, stars could maintain perfect public images while behaving terribly in private, secure in the knowledge that the studios, networks, and publications all had vested interests in maintaining their marketability. Today, one cell phone video could end a career, observed a former Desilu writer. Back then, someone could make an assistant cry, and as long as they sold tickets or attracted sponsors, the story would never leave the building. As we look back on Hollywood's golden age with nostalgia, Ball's honest opinions serve as a valuable reminder that our cultural icons have always been flawed, complicated human beings, sometimes inspiring, sometimes disappointing, and sometimes truly disturbing behind their carefully crafted public personas. Lucy used to say, "The camera doesn't just add 10 pounds, it adds a halo that isn't always deserved," remembered her longtime producer. Her greatest strength wasn't just making people laugh. It was seeing through the illusion to the truth underneath. Thank you for watching this exploration of Lucille Ball's most difficult contemporaries. If you found this journey into television's golden age revealing, Please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into entertainment history. And if these revelations shocked you, wait until you see our next video exposing the beloved TV dad whose perfect on-screen family hid a private life so scandalous that network executives installed a special hotline just to handle his emergencies. Click the bell icon so you don't miss this bombshell Hollywood expose dropping next week.